Let's first zoom out and really look at the evolution of school strategy over time. If we really dial it back to the 1980s, university recruiting looked very different. In those early days, consulting firms or other organizations were mostly sourcing talent from a pretty small, prestigious group of schools. Think your Ivy League institutions as an example. And then towards the end of this era, though, we start to see some expansion. Companies began reaching out into national universities and local colleges, typically hiring those near the offices where they were actually hiring into. So a little bit of a shift. Then we fast forward to the early 2000s, and things start to shift even more. Competition for talent was heating up, tech hiring was growing, and diversity, equity, inclusion was becoming a bigger priority for many organizations. And so, as a result, school strategies began to broaden meaningfully. Employers were no longer just focused on local or prestigious schools, they were intentionally adding diversity focused institutions like HBCUs and HSIs into the mix. Now we move into the 2010s and we actually saw the early stages of what we now think of as school agnostic strategies. So virtual engagement was becoming more common. Tools like Handshake was launched, and employers started hosting virtual events to reach students beyond their traditional core schools. But at this point, most organizations were still just testing the waters, right? There was no full commitment to this agnostic strategy. It was still just in the testing phase. Then we fast forward a little bit more and we get to 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic hit. And this was a huge catalyst and everything accelerated. Virtual engagement became the norm almost overnight. I'm sure many of you all remember that. And school agnostic recruiting strategies really surged out of necessity as opposed to want. Now, today we're actually navigating yet another major shift. And this is in conjunction with the rise of generative AI. We've entered what we call the application avalanche. And students now have the ability to apply to dozens, even at times hundreds of jobs or applications in under an hour. And what this has done is it's actually overwhelmed recruiters with massive volumes of applications. And so this has made it really hard to actually identify the right candidates within your pipeline. So your top of funnel might be massive, but actually narrowing that down into the students that you want to have join your organization can be really, really difficult. So again, the challenge now is different. Instead of broadening that funnel, as we've seen over the past few decades, companies are starting to think about how do we narrow that strategically, at least at the top of funnel. And so this is where we have started and where we expect there to be some changes when it comes to overall pipeline management. This contraction in this funnel and the mandate for increased ROI internally at companies has really led to a new era in selection strategies, and we're calling that the Great Reset.